Good morning, Mega Podlings. It's Crazy Joe. I want to talk to you about some DVDs and Blu-rays that were sent to me recently by Mill Creek. You saw me unbox them. I unboxed them here on the channel not long ago. And now I want to do some reviews. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I haven't watched these to completion because this is a lot of content. This is a lot of content, and I wanted to get these reviews to you in a timely manner. And in order to do that in a timely manner, we have to kind of sort of cut corners a little. I'm sorry, but like if I waited until I watched all 20 movies in this collection, if I watched 20 movies, then got back to you, you wouldn't be hearing from me till spring. I don't have that much free time, so I watched a few things, and we'll talk about what I've seen. First thing we're going to talk about. Mill Creek sent me the complete collection, the complete series of Franklin and Bash. Franklin and Bash is a lawyer show, stars Mark Paul Gosselaar and Breckin Meyer. I knew they starred in the show. I've heard of this show. I've seen commercials for the show. Never watched the show before. But I knew these two starred in it. What I did not realize is who else stars in this show. Malcolm Mcdowell. Malcolm Mcdowell stars in this show. He's the head of the law firm who hires Franklin and Bash in the pilot episode. And that's not all. Another guy who would go on to big things, but maybe was not that well known when this series premiered, is Kumail Nanjiani. Kumail Nanjiani is on this show as their germaphobe friend who doesn't like to leave the house. I am, traditionally speaking, not a lawyer show guy. Anyone who knows me knows sci-fi superheroes, time travel, aliens, vampires. You know, if we get to the supernatural, space or superheroes, that's where you kind of get me. Cops and lawyers, not so much. But that's not to say I don't like any lawyer shows. I did used to watch the occasional episode of LA Law back in the day. And, I mean, look, the Thursday night lineup on NBC back in the 80s, you had Cosby Show, you had Cheers, you had Seinfeld, you had Night Court for a while. Those were some of the best shows on television. And then what came on after them? LA Law. So it wasn't really my kind of show, but I was in front of the TV anyway, so I'd catch it. And it was a pretty good show. And I really like Boston Legal with my man, the Shat. Where is he? He's in the corner there. Where are you, Shat? There he is. Denny Crane. So yeah, I have been known to enjoy a lawyer show here and there. And this one I thought was pretty fun. I watched about 4 episodes of it. I'm going to watch more. I really enjoyed it. A couple things I didn't know. This show apparently aired on TNT. For some reason, I thought this was a USA show. I thought this was one of those USA Characters Welcome shows they used to advertise. No, this was actually on TNT, which I didn't realize. One little cool thing I noticed in one of the early episodes, they showed Kumail Nanjiani in his apartment, and he had a Clockwork Orange poster hanging on the wall, which is kind of funny because Mr. Malcolm McDowell, co-star on the show, was the star of Clockwork Orange. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, let's talk about the packaging. I love Mill Creek Entertainment, but if there's one thing we got to say about Mill Creek Entertainment, sometimes their packaging is controversial with physical media collectors. This is the same kind of box they've been putting a lot of their releases in lately. Hard box that opens at the top. It's a flip top. And you get these sleeves. This is what you get on the inside and a disc on each side. Now, some people don't like these. Some people complain about these, complain they scratch the discs. I'll be honest, I've never had, I mean, if there's like a teeny tiny scratch on the disc, okay. I've never had a disc skip or not play on me. Never. I think it's very hard to damage a DVD. It's very hard to make a DVD not play or skip, in my experience, because in the over 20 years we've had DVD, I can count like on one hand the number of times I've had it happen to me. Maybe some people have those issues. I never have. So I always think people are maybe making more of a big deal of that than they should. The actual discs, you'll see, they got all the episode titles right on the disc. So it's not bad. Obviously, it could be better. If it was in like a hard case with a spindle or something, it would be a little bit better. But Considering the price point that Mill Creek sells their stuff, I think this is not bad. And it's certainly better than those soft cases they were selling them in that would like crush. You know, those like soft cases that would like just crush. So this isn't too bad. Next thing I want to talk about. Inner Sanctum Mysteries, starring Lon Chaney Jr. This is another thing they sent me. This is a Blu-ray, Franklin and Bash's DVD. This is Blu-ray. It contains 6 movies. I've watched 2 of them. These are short movies, man. These movies are just about an hour each. 63 minutes, 63 minutes, 64 minutes, 62 minutes, 62, 67. The longest movie on here is 67 minutes. These are about an hour each. Inner Sanctum, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't too familiar with Inner Sanctum. Inner Sanctum was apparently a radio program, and they made a series of movies on them. And all of these movies star Lon Chaney Jr. But here's the interesting thing. He does not have a recurring character. He plays a different character in every movie. And I watched the first 2, Calling Dr. Death, and, what was the second one? Calling Dr. Death and Weird Woman. Those were the first 2 I watched. It's got special features on here that talk about the Inner Sanctum, the history of Inner Sanctum, the radio show. Apparently, Inner Sanctum, according to the documentary on here, they were known for a creaking door sound effect. That was sort of what they were known for. They had like the sound of a creaking door, and the Universal, when they acquired the film rights, did not acquire the rights to the sound effect of the creaking door, so they were told you can't use the creaking door, which was sort of the signature thing for Inner Sanctum. So they replaced it with a floating head, like in a crystal ball, narrating each of the movies. So these are pretty interesting. A bunch of mystery movies. Look, this is how we got them packaged. We have a slip sleeve. Very nice. And it comes with the discs and a book. Okay. You are now entering the Inner Sanctum, bonus features, and movie guide. So, see. There we go. Here's Weird Woman. And it tells you a little bit about the movie. Tells you who it stars. Let's see. And then there's some trivia for each movie. So, yeah, you get this little booklet. There's a little intro, little write-up intro about Inner Sanctum. So that comes in there. Then you've got the movies themselves, which come in a traditional Blu-ray case. And the 6 movies spread over 2 discs. So, like I said, I watched 2 of them. They're pretty good. I will watch the rest. And Lon Chaney Jr., for those of you who don't know, Gilbert Gottfried's favorite actor. I like Gilbert Gottfried's podcast. Gilbert Gottfried's amazing, colossal podcast. It's a good podcast if you've never listened to it. And he's very knowledgeable about movies. He's very, very, very knowledgeable. Real film geek. Which you might not expect from a guy like Gilbert Gottfried. You might not expect him to be as knowledgeable as he is, but he really knows his movies, and Lon Chaney Jr. is his favorite. So this is a pretty cool set, and I had no familiarity with Inner Sanctum, but I like it, and they look great, man. These are old black and white movies presented in a 4:3 aspect ratio. They look beautiful. They look clean. They look nice, and I look forward to watching the other 4 mysteries. So there you go. That was the other new release. And now here, let's get to the big one. This is the big one. 20 films, of which I've watched 2 movies and the special features. I watched all the special features and 2 of the features. I wish I had time to watch more of the features, but like I said, if I was going to get you this review in a timely fashion, I kind of had to cut corners and just watch a couple of the movies. But this is the Hammer Film Ultimate Collection. Now, what I did not realize, and I talk about this on the most recent MegaPodTastic Podcast. Obviously, Hammer is known for horror films. Obviously, they're known for their Frankenstein and Dracula films, above all else, starring Peter Cushing as Frankenstein and Christopher Lee as Dracula. you're only going to find one of those movies on here. There's one Frankenstein movie. The first movie on the disc is The Revenge of Frankenstein, which is one of the two movies I watched. And I kind of wish that I hadn't started with Revenge of Frankenstein, because it's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. Great movie. Looks great. It's looks beautiful. The picture, it's really good. So it's not a matter of quality. The reason I wish I hadn't started with that one is because it's kind of typical of what you expect from Hammer. And what I found out after I had already watched Revenge of Frankenstein is that this set contains very interesting movies. It's not what you expect when you hear Hammer horror. You expect, well, the Hammer films, you expect horror always. These aren't all horror films. And the gothic horror, Frankenstein, Dracula is what they're known for. That's not all that's on this set. So I watched the bonus features. The first one is a retrospective called the Columbia Years, Hammer, the Columbia Years. And that's all these are films that were released by Columbia Pictures. And apparently Hammer had a deal with Columbia where Columbia would release 2 films a year. And they weren't releasing their gothic horror so much. Occasionally they did. Revenge of Frankenstein, for example. But for the most part, they weren't releasing their gothic horror films through Columbia. They were releasing them through Universal, or I think Warner Brothers put out some of the Dracula movies. So they were getting more experimental with the films they put out through Columbia. So like we have, there's a pirate movie on here. There's a Robin Hood movie on here, The Sword of Sherwood Forest. Peter Cushing is in a Robin Hood movie. I don't know if he plays Robin Hood. I haven't watched that one yet. There is a movie starring the Newhart shows Tom Poston. Tom Poston is known more of a comedic actor, but he stars in a movie on here called The Old Dark House, and that's one I'm looking forward to watching. I haven't seen the Old Dark House yet. I haven't watched The Sword of Sherwood Forest yet. But like I said, we're getting some movies here that are not horror films, and they're a little more experimental than you would expect. So that's why I'm kind of disappointed I watched Revenge of Frankenstein first, because first thing I did was pop in the disc, watch the first movie, and the first movie that came on was Revenge of Frankenstein. So I went with the first movie on the first disc. And then when I started to find out what some of these other movies were, I was like, well, I should have gone to that one last. Because it's the weirder, more experimental films that make this set more interesting. Once I realized from watching the bonus features about the Columbia years, I went with a movie called Never Take Candy from a Stranger. That was the second movie I watched. Black and white movie. Really good. And it's about a delicate topic. It's not a horror film. It's sort of a courtroom drama. And it's about a very delicate subject matter. It's about sexual child predator. And this movie was set in 1960, made in 1960, and there was a sexual predator preying on children, and he was one of the richest men in town, and all the people kind of worked for him. So even though his evil was known, it was a very open secret in the town. Nobody wants to testify against him because he's also their employer and he's like the richest man in town. So there's a real reluctance to speak up. It's a good movie. It's ahead of its time. From what I read, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and at the time the movie was very controversial because of the subject matter. It was felt that was something you shouldn't talk about. So it was in poor taste to make a movie about it. But the movie's well done, and it's good. And again, it's not what you would expect from horror or from Hammer. When you think Hammer, you wouldn't think of a movie like that. And The Old Dark House, like I mentioned, starred Tom Poston, known for his comedies, and that movie is directed by William Castle. You know, kind of schlockmeister William Castle. I didn't even know William Castle ever made a Hammer film. So there's a lot of really interesting movies on here. I look forward to checking out more of this set, and I wish I had watched some of them first because I could tell you more about the more interesting movies. All right, so we get the cover. we get a hard case and, typical Beyond Gothic, the versatile films of Hammer Columbia. All right, and then inside you have a booklet. Interestingly enough, the booklet was not in there when Mill Creek sent me the discs. They sent me the booklet separate. So if you buy this in a store, I don't know if the booklet will be there. You might have to get in touch with Mill Creek, because it seems that they forgot to send the booklet out, at least with their review copies. I don't know how it is with the store copies. But yeah, it's a nice booklet. The discs usually have 2 films on them. Some of them have 3. And they're on these spindles. Like this one has 3. Old Dark House, Cash on Demand, and The Gorgon. 3 movies on that disc. Then we get to The Snorkel and Maniac. So we have 2 discs on that one. That disc is still in the machine. That's the last one I was watching. I didn't realize that was still in the machine. So, and then on the back cover, beyond the disc, you have the movie titles. If you pop this disc out, you'll be able to see the movie titles. Same with the front. So this is a really nice set of interesting movies. And as my good friend Mr. Cinema Sickness always says, if you're going to have a slip sleeve, you might as well put different art on there. So you get different art on the hard case than you do on the slip that it goes in. So there is Hammer 20 film Ultimate Collection, Inner Sanctum Mysteries starring Lon Chaney, complete series of Franklin and Bash. I'm recommending all these titles. I think this is the big winner. This is the most interesting of them. If you're a fan of Hammer films, you might really want to check this one out. And Franklin and Bash is a really good TV series. So these are my highly recommended of these 3. I would say probably the Inner Sanctum is the one I enjoyed the least. But they're all good. These are all worthy additions to a film library. So thank you to Mill Creek. Highly recommend all of these. All right, guys, that's it for this time. Hope you enjoyed those reviews. Till next time, keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas with the plastic feet. Keep wearing those pajamas. Tell everyone you meet. Keep wearing those pajamas with the back door flap. Keep wearing those pajamas. Don't open, it's a trap. Oh no, it's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander Adamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now we're having fun. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now the song is done.